good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You're listening to the Thai Expat Daily Show. I'm your host Kieran Mack and thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like this video if you're watching us on YouTube and please do subscribe. We're also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music and a host of other podcast players. Now that that's all done, let's jump into today's show. And we'll start off, as we always do, with the daily COVID numbers. There were 13,987 new COVID-19 cases and 188 more fatalities recorded during the previous 24 hours, the Public Health Ministry reported on Thursday morning. There were 13,503 cases in the general population and 394 in prisons. On Wednesday, 13,527 COVID-19 patients were discharged from hospital after recovering from the coronavirus. Now, I wanted to find some of the numbers for the different cities around Thailand, but the National News Bureau, who generally post those numbers each and every day, have decided to stop doing that for the last 3 days. So it's very hard to actually find numbers of these different areas right now. So what we can tell is the caseload now has kind of averaged out at about 13,000 cases per day. But what is quite interesting is the testing rate and how they've changed the whole way the testing is reported. Now, previously they used to report the number of tests versus the number of positives, and then we would get a percentage. But right now they're only reporting the percentage of tests that are positive, but not giving us the amount of tests, which is very, very, very odd. So we just don't know how many people they're testing anymore. And I think that's deliberately being done because the number probably is quite low at the moment. But fingers crossed things do start to get better. I know the country is in desperate need of the third wave to end sooner rather than later. And we'll start off with our first story of the day. Krabi imposes partial lockdown from September 15th. Phi Phi Island closures extended. Thailand's Krabi province has imposed a lockdown effective from September 15th after a cluster of COVID-19 infections was discovered. 84 new infections have been reported over the past 2 days, raising the province's cumulative total to 2,459, while 842 are still receiving treatment. According to the announcement by Krabi's Provincial Health Office, those travelling into Krabi must be fully vaccinated or have been inoculated with 1 dose of AstraZeneca for at least 14 days and must test negative for COVID-19. Dining in at restaurants in Krabi is allowed at only 25% of seating capacity, with no alcohol served, no air conditioners, and they must close at 8 p.m. Restaurants in Klong Tom and No Klong districts can only offer takeaway services. Shopping centres must close at 8 p.m, with no promotional activities allowed. Convenience stores can open from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m, while gaming and internet cafes, as well as massage parlours, gyms, fitness centres and other sports stadiums must close. The Provincial Health Office also agreed to extend the closure of Phi Phi Island for domestic visitors for another 7 days until September 24th. However, tourists under the Phuket 7+7 scheme can enter the island after staying in Phuket for 7 days. Tourists who wish to enter must show their certificate proving they are fully vaccinated and have tested negative for COVID-19 using a RT-PCR test. This means domestic travellers and other groups are banned from entering the island unless they receive approval from disease control officials. So, Krabi's gone into a bit of a mini lockdown along with Phi Phi Island, which has been closed already for 7 days. I do find it interesting how they discriminate between international travellers and their own citizens. So basically, if you are an overseas traveller, you're perfectly fine to go to Phi Phi Island. However, if you're a Thai citizen or an expat, you're banned. It makes absolutely no sense to discriminate between your own people. And like what's happening with Phuket now, who are trying to attract domestic travellers, it's only going to come back to bite Krabi in the ass as well. Because people are getting highly fed up of being discriminated against in their own country in favour of international tourists. As usual, nobody's thinking about the long-term effects of these programs and these rules they put in place. Hotel GM found dead on Phi Phi Island. Search teams on Phi Phi Island found the body of Florine Halleman, the 56-year-old general manager of the Zavola resort, yesterday. The discovery came after a days-long search involving more than 50 people after Mr. Halleman failed to return to the resort last Saturday, September 11th. Mr. Halleman's body was found about 200 metres from a path leading over the hills in the centre of the island, on a steep slope overlooking Flame Bay, reports the state news agency TNA. The cause of death is still unknown. Mr. Halleman's body has been recovered from the remote site and officers are in the process of investigating his death, the agency reported. Mr. Halleman was last seen walking past a resort in the Lem Thong area on the island on last Saturday. A CCTV camera recorded him walking towards the path of the hills. Krabi Immigration Superintendent said the search team said CCTV footage from a camera in front of a hotel showed Mr. Halleman walking past the camera at 2:24 p.m. He was walking alone with a backpack along the path leading to Ao Nui. After Mr. Halleman failed to return to the resort, hotel staff posted photos of him on social media, asking if anyone had seen him. They filed a missing persons report at Phi Phi Police Station on Monday, September 13. Mr. Halleman had been working on Phi Phi Island for almost 20 years. He was also well known and loved by the locals. Now, rest in peace to Mr. Halleman. Now, hopefully there was nothing sinister about his death, but I do note that there was a Thai man was also found dead about 3 days ago in the mangroves, and that seems to be not reported in this article, which I find a little bit strange, because I think to find 2 dead bodies on Phi Phi Island in the space of 3 days is unusual, and I think definitely that needs to be investigated. However, I do hope his death was maybe from a fall or something, and as I said, nothing sinister behind it. My condolences to his family, and yet again, Mr. Halleman, may you rest in peace. And up next, Bangkok's reopening to be postponed. Bangkok's reopening for inoculated tourists will be delayed by 2 weeks as most of the city's residents are still waiting for their second jabs, while the Tourism Ministry has pledged to open the city to bring at least 1 million international tourists this year. Piyapat Ratchapakan, the Tourism and Sports Minister, said the appropriate timeline for Bangkok should be postponed from October 1st to October 15th, as the capital city is expected to have administered COVID-19 vaccines to 70% of its residents by then. At present, 37% of the population is fully vaccinated, while another 33% are in the 8 to 12 week interval following their first AstraZeneca shot. The revised plan came up after a discussion with the Ministry and Bangkok Governor yesterday regarding the readiness of the city, which should be the gateway for inbound tourism. Mr. Piyapat said the Ministry and Tourism Authority of Thailand had proposed a plan to open just 21 inner districts, but due to possible inconvenience for tourists who might have to travel across districts, the Bangkok governor said the city should wait until the whole city is ready to take part in the program. The quarantine-free entry via Bangkok will benefit the whole country, as tourists usually visit Bangkok as their first destination before travelling to other provinces. With the 7+7 extension plan, which will be enabled at the same time, tourists can stay in the capital city for just 7 days and then choose another 8 provinces in the pilot reopening program as their second choice, Mr. Piyapat said. Besides Bangkok, Pattaya, Chiang Mai, Hua Hin, Cha Am are in the pipeline. Thailand already has Phuket and Koh Samui as the first 2 destinations for its sandbox program, while Krabi, Phanya were added in the extension program. Moreover, if the Public Health Ministry reduces the quarantine period from 14 days to 7 days in the near future, tourists in any sandbox program could go anywhere in the country from day 8. Meanwhile, local travellers who fly back home must also comply with the same entry regulations as foreigners, even though they have a Bangkok household, as the certificate of entry still requires them to show SHA plus hotel bookings in advance. Mr. Piyapat said that next week the ministry will propose the reopening of 5 areas, including Bangkok, to the CCSA subcommittee and also the Centre for Economic Situation Administration, which was postponed from this Friday. The standard operating procedure of all areas will be the same, should be finalised before the end of this month to start receiving tourists by October as planned. From mid-October we will not only open for international tourists, but the domestic stimulus campaign, which aims to spur local spending, will be rolled out at the same time, said Mr. Piyapat. He said the plan is in line with nationwide travel relaxation, which should be imposed from October 15 onwards. You might laugh to yourself when you hear things like this. Literally 2 days ago, they announced that Bangkok would reopen on October 1, and then the next day it's postponed until October 15th. To be honest, I just don't believe this will be the official date. I have a feeling it will move yet again. Maybe November 1, or who knows, next year. What I do know is that clearly they are not listening to people in the industry such as travel agents, hoteliers and airlines. If they did, they would tell them to scrap the COE and multiple COVID testing straight away. This is the only way to start to attract people. Stop calling this quarantine free when you fail to mention all of the above, along with the tracking apps on your phone and the daily checking in with the SHA manager. And why can't people stay at their own homes or condominiums on returning to Bangkok? Why put this extra expense on people? Do you really think people are going to flock to do this? 2 days ago, the biggest travel agency in the world postponed resuming holidays to Thailand until at least mid-December. This has hurt many hoteliers. The reason given was simple: COE, too many swab tests, and the need to stay at a sandbox location first before being able to travel somewhere else. These reasons were stated as red flags. Until Thailand removes them, there will be no mass return by them. Now the question is, do the authorities really want the return of tourism to this country, or is this an attempt by the military dictatorship government to reshape Thailand's tourism industry and try only attracting wealthy travellers who can afford all these extra expenses? I don't know. But if you look at their actions over the past 18 months, you might think so. It's time for Thailand's government ministers to shut up and stop talking. Stop making fools out of themselves with the constant misinformation. Set a plan, have one spokesperson, and communicate clearly to the people of Thailand and the potential tourists around the world what is the plan. With a plan, businesses can prepare, travel agents can plan, and airlines can set schedules. Without any of this, all it looks like to the outside world is a bunch of unqualified generals who couldn't organise a piss-up in a brewery. And what do you think about this? When do you actually think Bangkok will reopen? I'd love to know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Now getting back to a story that we covered yesterday, but we have a lot more detail in relation to it today. The government are still trying to entice those rich expats. The cabinet has green-lighted an economic stimulus and investment promotion package aimed at attracting wealthy foreigners and highly skilled professionals from overseas to help revive the economy post-COVID-19. Benefits in the package include a 10-year Thai visa for not only approved special visitors, but also their spouses and children, said the government spokesman last Tuesday. The package also includes automatic work permits, the same rates of income tax as Thai citizens, tax exemption for income earned abroad, and ownership of properties and land, he said. Mr. Thanakorn said that the right to choose to pay a fixed rate of income at 17% within the package is being offered, but only to foreign experts contributing to the development of the government's flagship Eastern Economic Corridor EEC scheme. The government expects to attract more than 1 million qualified people to Thailand in the next 5 years, beginning next year, he said. The government has 4 targeted groups for this long-term visa scheme, with the first group being wealthy global citizens who have travelled frequently and also have assets in several countries, he said. To obtain a long-term Thai visa, this group would be required to invest at least $500,000 in Thai government bonds in the form of foreign direct investment or in real estate, he said. The minimum income requirement for this group is $80,000 per year for the past 2 years, while the required minimum value of assets owned is $1 million and the minimum health insurance covered required is $100,000, he said. The second target group are wealthy pensioners who are at least 50 years of age with sufficient pensions to cover their cost of living in Thailand. The people in this group are required to invest at least $250,000 in Thai government bonds in the FDI program or in real estate, he said, adding that the minimum income required for this group is $40,000 per person per year. The minimum health insurance package required for this group is also $100,000 per person. The third group are the so-called work from Thailand professionals who are interested in living in Thailand while working remotely for their employers in other countries, he said. The people in this third group are expected to be digital nomads and employees of large organizations who are close to retirement, he said. The fourth and last group of foreigners expected to be interested in this long-term visa program are highly skilled professionals who may want to come to Thailand to either work as experts in the government's target industries, Mr. Thanakorn said. Highly skilled professionals who would work as university lecturers teaching subjects related to industries of importance are also within this group. They are required to have at least 5 years of work experience, earn at least $40,000 per year, and hold a health insurance policy with a coverage of $100,000, he said. The Board of Investment of Thailand has been assigned to set up a new centre to specifically serve this long-term visa program, he added. So that's a lot more detail in relation to this drive by the government to find lots of rich people who want to come and live in Thailand and part with their money quite quickly. So we have the wealthy global citizens, and to qualify for that you have to be a high income earner, travelling frequently and living in several countries. You have to at least invest $500,000 in Thai government bonds or in real estate. Now within all of this, I hope when they say real estate, you can buy a piece of land with your money and have full rights to it. Not like currently where foreigners are just not allowed to buy land. That'd be 100% in your name. So hopefully that's what they mean. But the way Thailand behave in relation to land like this, I don't think it's going to be as easy as maybe this sounds. Also, a lot of people, a lot of discussion online is about, well, this is going to be a new digital nomad work visa. Well, I don't see it being that. Work from Thailand professionals, and these are interested in working remotely from Thailand for employers based in other countries. Now, the qualifications, right, is you have to be a high income earner, right? And your business has to be outside of Thailand. You have to show proper business certificates. You have to show income from abroad. You have to have a minimum, probably, they seem to think $40,000 per year is what they consider a high income earner. And I don't know how many digital nomads this will actually appeal to. I mean, currently the digital nomads that come to Thailand seem to be kind of lone guys, people who work for themselves. And this, in my opinion, is not aimed remotely at them. It is, like I said yesterday, a bit of a cash grab. The government are trying to reel in people, a bit like the elite visa. But what I worry about these things is as quickly as they make them up, they can cancel them. If you invest in government bonds, I'm sure they'll find a way to take some of that money back off you when you want to take that money back out again. Everything here in Thailand, when they're going after people with money, you have to be very skeptical about. And never part with your money here unless you truly, truly can afford to, because they'll always find a way to take it from you. And people should just be careful of these kind of programs at the moment. Thailand is desperate for money and income, and that should be a worry to anybody thinking of investing. Vaccination mandatory in COVID-free setting from October 1. All employees in malls and other at-risk businesses will need to be vaccinated by October 1 when the COVID-free setting measures roll out. Department of Health Chief announced the move during his visit to check Bangkok Siam Paragon on Wednesday. The COVID-free setting measure is being piloted at the mall this month. CFS will be deployed in full from October 1, aiding Thailand's return to normal life after months of heavy restrictions to curb infections. Suanchai said starting next month, all employees in COVID-free settings should be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 and take an antigen test every 7 days. Employees in COVID-free settings who have only one dose of vaccine will need to test negative and undergo a risk assessment before being allowed to work. Meanwhile, customers who have not had both doses may need to present a negative antigen test to enter malls, said health officials. Under the CFS measures, shopping malls and other businesses must have a contingency plan to immediately control any outbreaks of COVID-19. All business owners must also make quarantine preparations to ensure speedy isolation and treatment of any employees who contract the virus. That's just a little information. Seems to be for the dark red provinces yet. Now, it hasn't said anything about whether it'll be rolled out nationwide, but the way Thailand is going, it certainly looks that way. In Phuket news, Phuket reported 246 new COVID infections in the past 24 hours. 2 of them were from the sandbox program. Over the past 7 days, Phuket has recorded a total of 1,646 COVID cases. We had 474 international arrivals through the sandbox scheme, all tested negative for COVID on arrival. They arrived on 5 flights, 1 Qatar Airways, 1 El Al, 2 Singapore Airlines and a private jet. Since the 1st of July, 32,480 travellers have availed of the sandbox program. And in other news, Rawai Sea Gypsy Village lockdown order finally issued. The Phuket governor has issued an order mandating that the Sea Gypsy Village in Rawai be placed under lockdown effective today, September 15th, until September 28th. Ukrainian woman killed as ice delivery pickup wipes out. A Ukrainian woman was killed and 3 other people were injured after an ice delivery truck spun out of control on Tepkasatri Road this morning, September 15th. The truck, a converted pickup truck with a cold box fitted on the back, crossed the central reservation and ploughed head-on into oncoming traffic on the other side of the road. And rest in peace to the Ukrainian lady who did die. And finally, Phuket Vegetarian Festival will go ahead. The annual Phuket Vegetarian Festival will go ahead on October 6 to 14, but must be observed under strict COVID-19 protection measures Phuket officials have announced. But ultimately, with this story or anything else that stood out to you today, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments down below. Because yes, this is a news show, but it's also a conversation. Now keep that conversation going. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and do all the good stuff that does help that YouTube algorithm. But ultimately, my name is Kieran Mack. You've been listening to the Thai Expat Daily Show, and we will see you next time.